Welcome to my show, simply entitled Women Influencers, where you will find inspirational stories of successful women in business. I am Veronica Malolas, CCIM, founder and CEO of the Capstrata Group of Companies, providing commercial real estate development, brokerage, and property management services in the greater Orlando area. Today's guest is Allison McCune Davis, best-selling author of 60 is a Good Start and Reignite the 60-Day Care, two fabulous books on traditional naturopath. This was a great conversation. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe below. I welcome your comments and please share with someone who can benefit from this podcast. Hi, Allison. How are you today?
I'm great. Great to be here.
If you don't mind, I'll just want to dive right in and ask you about how you grew up in your environment and how you got to where you are today. So tell us, Allison.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Oklahoma. Actually, I grew up in the house that I now live in. So that was kind of crazy. I was the oldest of four, and my father was a doctor. So kind of interesting because I'm all into natural health, but I really grew up in a very medical world, like most of our country. And went off to college, studied TV and film, went off to college in Texas and then in San Antonio, Texas, and then was there for 8 years and then moved to LA for another 8 years and was a TV producer in various capacities. PBS was my real love because it was very, educational and informative. That was in the 80s.
So was that but was that in Hollywood? Is that where it happened?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Cool.
I moved to actually Hollywood Hills when I first moved out there, and kind of have to go back down to the bottom of the totem pole when you get out to a place like LA or New York. So my first real job was as the assistant to the creative director of the largest special effects house in LA. And our clients were Star Trek Next Generation.
Oh my God. I love Star Trek.
I do too. Max Headroom. I don't know. That was a real cult show back then. Prince videos. We just did all kinds of things, but I got to work for creative director.
Hold on. Prince as in Prince from Minneapolis. Oh my God.
Prince.
I have a story for that.
Oh, good.
I used to live in Minneapolis and I actually used to sing and I recorded in his studio, met him as well. It was
really
awesome stuff. I love Prince. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress, but go ahead, please tell us.
Well, and then did a PBS series, and then I was a computer graphics producer at ABC for a number of years. And then I came home to this house, and my parents lived here, and I met my future husband. So I'm 35 at this point. He lived in DC, but our parents were friends, and I was a little bit older, so we didn't know each other growing up. And we met, and I mean, it was sort of love at first sight. And we did long distance for a while. And both of us actually were ready to leave the big cities. I'd been there for quite a while. Biological time clock was ticking. And we just decided to, and there was there was a job here in this tiny town. I mean, this is a population 50,000. There was a job for the director of the community access TV station. So this is mid-90s. And I interviewed. We were like, we'll interview for it, And so, they wanted to hire me. So he's a lawyer. So he thought he could hang out a shingle and be a lawyer. And so we moved back here. And that was 30 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. And you had children?
Yeah. Well, then we had 3 children, and then we adopted 2, one from Russia, one from Ethiopia. Wow. And so raised them. And I homeschooled for 20 years. I don't currently, but, so yeah, that led me up to, oh gosh, I bet probably about 5 years ago when I decided to write this book. And turned 60. I started late. I didn't have our first till I was 37.
So awesome. Wow, you remind me of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. That's pretty cool. But so tell us a little bit about how you transition from what you used to do, which is studio and video and all the Hollywood stuff. And then you homeschooled. And how did you transition into natural health?
Well, so I had those first 3 kids, I was 37, 40, and 42 when I had them. And after that, my body just kind of tanked, and which, it's not uncommon. I mean, that just being pregnant and, it just does something to the body, right? And then
For sure.
you add to that just living the typical American diet and lifestyle and, running all the time and high stress for various reasons. And anyway, I finally went to my first naturopath doctor. I had started delving into natural health at about 30 when I lived in LA. And that really kind of got me interested to realize that herbs and supplements could heal things. The body could heal, right, with that kind of help, as opposed to prescriptions or over the counter things or
Yeah.
anything. Like that was an awakening. So then I, little by little got more into it, finally went to the naturopath, and he was just like, your gut health, which is like 85% of our health, was just bad. I did not have
Mm.
enough good bacteria. I had too much bad bacteria. My adrenals were shot. My thyroid was messed up. So all of these things were causing me to like get sick every 6
Mm.
weeks. And I have these 3 little kids, I'm trying to be
Yeah,
a
I hear
mom.
you.
So my whole sort of purpose became getting energy, right? Feeling
Mm.
good.
Mhm.
So little by little, I just tried to, I started using herbs that he wanted me to use and just working on my diet and just all the things that go toward a healthy body and life, all the way around.
Well, what did your dad think about all this, being
Oh,
a doctor?
when in LA, a friend of mine was like, "Oh, you have to go to my TCM doctor, traditional Chinese medicine." And I remember thinking, "Oh my gosh, my dad would freak out." But yeah, I would. Well, I'll tell you what. He was a surgeon, and
Mm.
so a little bit different kind of a doctor, but a thoracic surgeon. Just kind of neck to
Mm.
legs, and but he died of cancer in
Oh,
2005. So he
sorry.
was diagnosed inoperable, stage 4 colon cancer 2 years prior. And I remember, I'd come over here a lot of times. I remember in particular, he had some bladder issues during the whole thing, and so I brought him some oat straw tea because it really is great for that, and he loved it. And I remember that
Mhm.
was sort of his first time to be like, oh, maybe she has a point here. But
Yeah, I mean, I actually lived in Asia all my life, and lived in Singapore, where
wow,
Chinese medicines and herbs were,
yes,
were the go-to.
the
And I
norm.
do, yeah, and I know how that is. I mean, culturally for centuries,
Yeah,
you
thousands
know.
of years,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So
Hmm.
that's so interesting. And then you decided to write a book. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and so, well, probably from about age 50 to 60, and still, I kind of got into teaching women about natural health and, certain supplements and herbs and all of that stuff. And I would teach locally here. I had a place where I would teach, and then online also, and online groups and stuff like that. And then I turned 60, so I'm almost 65, but I turned 60. So this is back in, I guess that'd be 2020, into 2020. And I was just feeling really restless. My older
Mm.
3 were out, the younger 2 were very independent now. I mean, my life had really shifted, which so many women's do, and they find
Yeah.
themselves in this same place. I hear it all the time, whether their kids are grown now and it's this empty nest, or maybe they had a long career and now they're just sort of tr- just shifting and not sure, and it's just, I think it's a transformative time. It might be in 50s, 60s, 70s. For me, I was 60 and just
Mm.
super restless. I still love doing what I was doing, but I just needed something different. I didn't know what it was. And
Mm.
so I kind of went on this little 7-month journey, odyssey of, I thought I'm just going to have to say no to or yes to some things that maybe are not the thing, but because
Mhm.
I was looking for that thing that, would take me kind of into the next 5 to 10 years, and something that I could really sink my teeth into, that I could be excited about when I got up in the
Mm.
morning, right? And so eventually that 7 months led to one day I was just like, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to write a book, and combining my love of natural health, a lot of details about that, why it's hard in the Western world to do that, because we are such a medicalized world. Also, my fascination with longevity. And so a lot of the stuff I talk about comes from a bunch of studies, not only the blue zones, you know what the blue zones are.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh, so where all the centenarians are, but also some
yeah.
really big Harvard studies, some cancer studies on longevity in that realm. And they all say the same thing in terms of our lifestyle habits. And so that's what the book it's sort of bringing all my background together, but also with a plan,
Mm.
because I'm like, I could spew all this information out, people can read it and then go on their merry way, but how are they going to apply it and
Yeah.
really execute on really what I'm talking about is habits of longevity, of a good lifestyle that will lead to longevity. And they're just some basic ones that, but do we do them? No, but they need to be our daily habits.
No,
So,
I agree. I
so the
totally agree.
the book, here's the it's called 60 is a Good Start, a
Mhm.
powerful body, a purposeful life, and a plan to make it happen. And there's a planner that goes with it for
Ah,
because it leads to the 60-day dare.
I
And
see.
so 60 is a good start. It has a double meaning, the title of the book. It's 60, yes, I was 60. It's kind of women in midlife. Really, it can apply to anybody at any time because they're good habits. But also 60 is a good start is 60 days is a good start, because we know from Dr. Caroline Leaf, the neuroscientist, that we can see habit formation in the brain, in the nerve cells in the brain. And we see that it takes at least 60 days. It might be a little more, might be up to 8 months. Depends on if it's a physical or a thought habit, just, depends on the person. But we know it takes at least 60 days to create a habit. So,
Well, I would agree that lifestyle changes are needed. I turned 62 this March,
okay.
and my doctor said, "Look, you're not the same as when you were 50s." And it required a lifestyle change. So
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. It's really wonderful how you've written a book and have a planner for that. Well, I wanted to ask you, Allison, about a challenge that comes to mind and how you overcame it. Could you share that with our audience today?
Well, I mean, I think that the big challenge I sort of already mentioned was, I mean, when I think back about challenges, I mean, I think the big one was probably my health when I was in my early 40s, 43, 45, and just, having to just change what I was doing, completely change what I was doing. I've certainly had other challenges in my life. I remember moving out to LA was a big, oof, I had to get my courage up for that. But really, the biggest one was probably just diving into what was going on with my health and just figuring it out, because it's so individual and it's such a puzzle, and people are like, people ask me, well, what should I do for this? Well, gosh, there's a million questions we need to talk about first, right? Because
Yeah.
people are just so different, and it's just not a one size fits all. I mean, there are some similarities in women, but everybody's got a different kind of life, a different kind of maybe stress at home. And stress is a huge factor in what we're dealing with. What's the
Well,
diet? I mean, there's so many factors. So yeah, I think it's the biggest puzzle we all deal with our whole lives.
yeah, and I have to agree. And to our young audience, that's something you need to look forward to.
Yeah, you
The
just
changes
think
in your
about it.
body, and it's almost like a pile up of everything that you've done habit wise
Hmm.
since you were a teenager all the way out
It
to
is. It
the
is.
age. And that's what happens is then you're all of a sudden faced with this sort of reality that your body has changed and now you
Right,
have to change
right.
your lifestyle. Well,
It's so
great.
true.
I want to ask you about influence and how you've actually made an impact on an outcome that you're most proud of. Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, there's probably two things I would say. That the first and most important, I think, are my children. My
Mm,
5 kids. They're now 27 down to 15. And so it's been a lot of years of influence. And as
yeah,
a homeschooler, I for a lot of those years, I probably was their biggest influence,
absolutely.
versus being in a school 7, 8 hours a day. So I think that's the most important and number one, and they've all turned out pretty good so far. So hopefully we're on the right track.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but second, for about 14 years, I've been working with women and teaching classes and just sort of educating on natural health and helping people to find solutions to different issues. And that's been in person locally and also online and in groups. So I would say that would be number two.
And tell me a story about maybe someone that comes to mind as far as the health lifestyle changes that you've actually helped a woman or a man.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Oh, there's so many. There's several in the book, and then I mean, one that comes to mind is she's a really good friend. We've been friends for a long time, and I remember she came in. We had a little homeschool group, so this would be when my kids were maybe the oldest was 8. And so we
Mhm.
had a group of women that we would go to the local children's museum just to get out of the house with the kids, the other homeschooling moms. And so there might be 6 or 7 moms and a bunch of kids running around, and it was our opportunity to just be together and hang out and talk. And she was new to our group, and she was having real hormone issues.
Mm,
And when we really, and this was a group of women that were already into natural health. So that was just kind of our constant conversation, but she was new to all of that. And so, just going into her house and like all the chemicals in our homes, which this is just one thing. So usually we find that in our bathrooms, under our kitchen sink, and in our laundry rooms. The
yes.
cleaning things, the skincare, the toothpaste, the mouthwash, just the makeup, the soap, the cleaners, all the stuff we use. Pretty much they're usually, full of chemicals. You have to make a big effort to find stuff that's clean. And those
Mm,
things will disrupt your hormones. And we hear estrogen disruption. We hear that term all the time, or just endocrine disruption. So
mhm.
that's the whole endocrine system. And so she, little by little, we just helped her started cleaning out those cabinets. Not using just certain kinds of skincare or cleaning products or all of those things. And then she got into using some essential oils. Like I remember lavender was a big one for her
Mm,
that really kind of emotionally hit her too. So we look at the emotional side of things because a physical symptom usually has an emotional root connected to it. And sometimes you
yeah.
can look at that and go, oh yeah, that really makes sense. And sometimes it takes a week for it to hit, but
Yeah.
so that's one that comes to mind.
Okay. Well, that's great because you're friends, and it must have been so wonderful, at least gratifying to see that you've actually helped a dear
Oh,
friend.
yeah. Mhm.
Well, and that leads me to the question about advice. If there was one piece of advice that you could give to our audience today, what would that be?
I think the biggest piece of advice I have, and really my program, I have an online program for the 60-day dare also, if people want to do that. But it's really your future is hidden in your daily routine.
Mm,
And we have to ask ourselves, what do I want my life to look like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I think that's a really important question to ask, because if we don't ask that question, life just sort of rolls on, right? One day,
oh, yeah.
next and the next, they all look the same. And we know we want something deep down. We want to be, whether it fit, or we want to be engaged in relationships that maybe we're an introvert, maybe we're lonely, maybe we live alone, or whatever. There's a million things, but so those habits we have to really look at, and we have to try to incorporate into our life. I like to say baby step by baby step. But yeah, our so what's our routine today? That's that's what our life's going to look like unless we make changes.
That's so awesome. It really is. And it reminds me of what I said earlier about we don't even realize as a young person how much of that piles up
Yes.
because we're not really focused in that. We're just living, right?
Hmm.
So thank you. Thank you for that. I think we've come to the point of our interview where you get to ask me a question.
Oh,
So go
good,
ahead.
good. Well, you're in real estate, commercial real estate, which I think real estate's fascinating. I always have. And so my question is, what does the commercial real estate world look like since COVID? So
Mm,
COVID happened and all these people went home, worked from home, certainly there for a while, initially. And then in the last maybe year or two or three, I don't know how many, but little by little, some people have gone back to work in the building, the office where they worked
mhm.
before. But I hear about, like, in big cities, commercial buildings just being empty.
Yeah.
And like, because they went home and they never came back, and the companies were like, well, it works for us to have them work remote. Uh, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's going to be different for each company, but that's my question for you is, what does that world look like today, and where do you see it going in the near future?
So if only I had the crystal ball. But
Right.
you're absolutely right. COVID changed a lot of behavior. I'll tell you the one good thing was that a lot of small businesses were born in their kitchens and in their living rooms. And so retail, which was predicted to be something that would die, actually has had a revival. So that's
Wow.
really, really, really great because we have a lot of
Yes.
small businesses that have just like flourished since
Hmm.
COVID. So that's the good thing. Now, particularly in office, you're correct. In big cities, we're
Hmm.
seeing as much as 40% vacancy. So
Wow.
imagine yourself as an investor of a high-rise
Oh,
building
yes.
and you have tenants that are not paying rent. I mean, it is a big concern. And from what I hear, and these are predictive analytics coming from the professionals who look at that, that it's only going to get worse.
Mm.
And so there's a lot of sort of like repositioning and repurposing of a lot of you know office buildings. Although I will tell you that Class A office is doing well. Those are the ones that are outfitted with a lot of technology,
Okay.
newer.
Hmm.
So and then some companies, the big corporations, are pushing for coming back to the office.
Yeah, I've heard
And
that.
I've
Hmm.
heard that some companies actually don't offer any kind of promotions to people who don't want to
Hmm.
come back to the office because leadership is about
Yeah, there's
you
something about being together
you,
with your colleagues.
you can't
That's pretty great.
yeah you
Hmm.
can't really have a, a robust team
Yeah.
and build relationships if you're talking to them across a laptop. So
Right.
those are
Right.
some of the trends that we're seeing. Thankfully in Florida we are only having about 9% vacancy for
Okay.
office. Retail
Interesting.
is just bursting. It's
Mm.
really robust. A lot of in migration, so our
Mm.
population is growing. A lot of
Hmm.
traffic now. You
Hmm.
talked about the town you moved in Oklahoma, 50,000 people. In my county alone, we have 360,000 people.
Wow. Hmm.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm not. It's hard to predict
Yeah.
because everything's driven by the economy, and we're hoping that nothing so catastrophic actually happens again. But so
Right.
far, that's what the trend is, and I'm really a little bit surprised, not surprised, but pleasantly surprised that you asked me a question about my profession. I
Well, it's
love it. I love it.
interesting.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask you if the audience wanted to buy your book or connect with you. How can they do that?
Yes, well, it's certainly on Amazon. It's everywhere you buy books online. My website is my name, my full name, AllisonMcCuneDavis.com. They could go to AllisonMcCuneDavis.com/links. And on there are lots of links to different things, but one of them is a free PDF download. It says guide to supplements and practices I use to keep my immune system boosted. So that might be interesting, and that's free.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So we're going to have all your links in the episode down below. So I want to thank you, Allison, for spending the time with me. You're just really fabulous. I love this conversation. So I'm going to say all the best to you and your business, and I
Thank
hope
you.
to cross paths with
Thank
you
you. And
again.
same to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.